Hi, it's Tess, and for those who don't know me, I'm a bariatric patient, nearly 7 years post-surgical. I've lost half my weight. I was challenged to go live a couple of years ago. I just never stopped. It keeps me engaged, and hopefully I help others along the way. I mentioned that probably a week or so ago, I found this little meme bleep or a little quote thing that talks about don't just do this. So I've been finishing up with that, and today's is don't just learn, but experience. And add to that, I'm going to say don't just learn, experience, and reskill. And it kind of talks about due to like the lockdown and technology in general, we are in an environment where we want to be constant learners. We want to be constantly growing in our skills, and we want to be adaptable to changing environments. And I was thinking about my career, and I probably shouldn't admit this, but I started in the days when they were just phasing out of typewriters and they were going into computers, and everybody had the dumb terminals. I can remember being in a college classroom and the instructor holding up a CD going, "This is the future. There'll be no more of these floppy drives." It was in the days of like lab rooms. You didn't have your smart computer that you walked around with. So there was a lot of things. And for me, I think that the change and the adapting was easy because it always made my life easier. If I told you, I actually took typing classes, and it was always a pain because some people were typing 120 words a minute and I could not accurately type 120. So when computers actually came on board, I loved that no computer could keep up with a typist who'd been trained to type 120 words a minute. Now, granted, I never got that fast, but I didn't have to get that fast. And I can remember like my very first year in insurance, it may not have been my first year in insurance. There was a point in time in the insurance industry where software didn't catch up, and you actually had to type 1099s by hand. And these 1099s came in an envelope, and it had like a cover sheet on it, and you'd have to type. But if you made even, "Hi, AC, good to see you," if you made one mistake, you would have to throw the whole W-2 away, or a whole 1099 away, and you'd have to start fresh. So I went through all kinds of pain, and every time something new came up, I loved it because it made my life easier. So for me, I wasn't afraid of technology. I actually liked it. It gave me something new to look forward to, and it generally made my job easier. So for me, I loved it. But I know for many, it's fearful. I can still remember because computers were just up and coming. I would actually add data entry because it was dumb terminals. I would data entry, transmit once a day to Chicago. Chicago would second day express statements back to us because you couldn't print these statements. The software was so expensive. It would be one home office had the software. You would transmit to them. They would print it off, and then they'd send it back to you to second day air. So that's how a lot of that worked in the beginning. So I actually enjoyed the change. I mean, I was notorious because I was thinking about it recently. I always talk about that I was an insurance accountant. Well, that's not how I started. I actually started as a marina underwriter. So in the insurance industry, I've been one of those people that popped all over the place. Like I'm still hearing from headhunters to this day because it's kind of funny. I got a notification that One America, who writes my IBC policies, was looking at my LinkedIn profile, but that's only because my background would trigger for anybody in the insurance industry doing a search. But it's kind of funny because I've done them all. Like I did the underwriting. When the claims modules were coming up, I did all of that. The reason I ended up in accounting is when I was doing certain underwriting things, they closed down that department and they had to try to replace everybody. And I had skills in accounting, so they moved me there. But I realized that in my career, I was not afraid of change like everybody else was because it always made my job easier. I could enter it in software and it would print for me. I didn't have to correct my mistakes on this manual sheet of paper. I liked when I could print a financial statement and go to a printer and get it off. Then I liked when I could get it in a PDF format and email it to somebody. So for me, I always saw the benefit of the changes where some people didn't want to learn something new. And that has always been my background. So they were talking about that learning and experiencing and reskilling is really, really critical right now. And it is because not only did we go through a whole change because of the lockdown, but we also were going through technology changes because of just the way that technology develops prior to the lockdown. So it's actually, they say, it's almost like an emergency situation where people have to be adaptable. And I was blessed in that I got bored, and that's probably why I changed. I stayed in the insurance industry, but I changed into insurance companies probably 3 or 4 times. It was kind of a joke. I would last 10 years and then I'd go to the next one. So I probably worked for 3 or 4 over the course of my career. But it would be when I'd get bored, I'd look for something else. And for many people, they don't. And I think I talked recently that in my industry, I would see people that would sit in the same chair for 30 or 40 years, and they would be angry when a new computer system came up, because then they could never see past that implementation part. They just saw that it was going to cost them more work, and it became problematic. But there is a point where it doesn't matter. You're going to have to adapt because these things are coming forward. Like even in the beginning, I can remember we had departments, like when we would prepare quarterly and annual statements. For those that don't know, I worked for companies that had anywhere from 6, no less than 3, but up to 6 or 9 insurance companies. And you would have to prepare a separate statement for each one. And then once a year, you'd have to do a consolidated of all of them together. But on top of that, you would also have to send to each state that you operated in and the National Association Board you'd have to send to. So you could have a week's worth of mailings to do. And by the end of it, now everything is electronic. I think by the time I left, we had used to have to send out for each insurance company to all 50 states and then to any of the regional regulatory boards. And by the end, when I walked away in January, I think we were down to 5 states that hadn't switched over yet to electronic. So being that person that's adaptable is critical. And it says that you want to be a person, and I do agree with this, and maybe it is my Gemini personality, but you want to live your life curious. And if you're curious, you'll look for inspiration. It will help you to self-direct. It will, and they say that you will not diminish your curiosity as you age. It'll keep you active. And I'll say that's true too, because the last job I took, I went back to what I did in a previous job, and it was boring to me. So I needed something different. And that's probably why I lasted 1 year. We went into lockdown, and then by the time we were coming out of lockdown, I was gone, or I was getting ready to leave. But that's just me. Everybody's different. But it says lifelong learners and reskilling is what keeps you active in the marketplace. It's that growth mentality. It's that curiosity mentality. And I often joke, it's almost like your to-do list. It has to change. It's going to change. Your approach is going to change. The people you deal with is going to change. You have to treat every moment like a learning experience. And you have to kind of look at it as something that's fun. You want, like, in my industry, especially since we're highly regulated, and in some cases I worked for publicly traded, I always joke that to-do lists and process documentation are living documents. Every quarter in the publicly held companies, we had to review and sign off on process documentation. So it was just kind of a constant evolving process. And if you didn't embrace the constant change and growth, you ended up bitter, because there were some people that would be angry, and you could, as soon as there was going to be something new coming on board, you could see who was going to be angry and spitting nails outside of their cubicle. And honestly, it didn't do anybody any good. You were going to have to do it anyway. But I guess in talking about this, if you are fixed and you're not, learning, you can learn, but you have to implement and keep things moving forward. Because if you're fixed, it doesn't allow you to grow into what is coming down the road. Well, hi, Miss Joanne. Good to see you. AC's on too. So both of these ladies I saw in Secret Knock earlier this year. So hello. But I do think it is important. And actually being adaptable helped me as well when I worked for the company that I was a marina underwriter, and they had to place us somewhere else. Because I had been popping around, like when they were implementing claims modules, I would jump on the team that was getting them all uploaded into the computer system. So what always happened for me, because I always wanted to know something more. Maybe I'm just nosy by nature, I don't know. But because I always wanted to know something more, I had enough of a skill that it would bounce me somewhere else. But what ended up ultimately happening is because I had such a strong analytical background, once I got into accounting, they never let me bounce anymore. I could do special projects, but they never really let me bounce anymore. And it's a unique skill. That's why I still hear from headhunters now. They're like, are you interested? Because it's very rare to have somebody with that background. But it is truly your approach or how you think about things. You want to be curious. You want to be inspired by learning something new. You want to be excited about what technology is going to provide you. If you look at it, like I said, in the very beginning days, I was typing things by hand because we couldn't have software that would produce what we needed. And I got excited every single time they took away one of those manual processes because it gave me an opportunity to do something new. I do see a few more on. I just don't see all the names, but thank you for being here. But it was, for me, the greatest gift I gave myself was being open to learning something new, because being open allowed me opportunities to move when the industry changed. Because even though insurance is pretty standard, it follows the same rules. What happens inside of the offices change. Like I said, I worked on marina policies. They stopped writing marina. That wasn't profitable for a period of time. But I also got to play with other things. I got to work on captives. I worked on offshore captives from the Cayman Islands and things like that. I got to work on these little small cell things that if people weren't writing, if agents weren't writing quality business, we would give them this little cell and they would get a part of the profit if they were profitable. So we had all these little things, and by being open, it allowed me to experience a lot of different things. And it was fun. It was really kind of interesting. Actually, I'm going to have to reach out to my guys from the Cayman Islands because they told me Santa Claus scuba dives in the Cayman Islands. And since I'm a certified diver, I kept telling you I was going to come down there, so I'll still have to do that. But I guess today, I just really wanted to talk about, some people fight the idea of learning, but not only do you want to learn, you want to experience and you want to reskill, because the world is changing. Your phone is changing constantly. Your computer is changing constantly. If you don't change, you will be left behind. And in my career, I saw that happen to some people. And there got to be an age, like even in the insurance industry, there was an age where if you weren't continuing to develop, you almost phased yourself out of a job. You ended up leaving, and it was painful to watch people end up gone, but they would end up gone because they weren't willing to be open to what was being provided. And honestly, in most cases, it was something that would make your job easier. I do see Joanne. You will see AC at Prosperity Camp. I will not, because Chris Noggle has Money Tank that exact same time, so I'll be at that event. But I do believe AC is going to be at Prosperity Camp. So I know there's other ones on. I'm not seeing everybody, but thank you for being here. And I'll shut up because I get long-winded about this stuff. But if you can, learn to be open. It can be fun to learn something new if you keep your head in the right spot. Because if you don't, you end up phased out. And the thing that makes me feel good is I still am hearing from people who want me because I kept myself current. And I think for all of us, that's just the world we live in. You either decide to participate in this world or you crawl in a corner. And I don't want to see any of us crawl in a corner. So thank you guys for being here. Have a beautiful day, and we'll talk soon.